County Planning Commission meeting to order on June 28th, 2021. Can we start with a roll call?
Yes, Commissioners Hom.
Here.
Martinson.
Here.
Rathel.
Here.
Tatishi. And Shelby.
Here.
And you do have a quorum.
Great. Start with our opening comment.
And in compliance with directives of the county, state, and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this meeting is live streaming closed to in-person public participation. Temporary procedures are subject to change pursuant to guidelines related to social distancing and minimizing person-to-person contact. To make a verbal comment at today's meeting, dial 916-875-2500 and follow the prompts to be placed in queue for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter. When the chair opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be transferred from the queue into the meeting to make a verbal comment. Written comments are always accepted. Feel free to send your email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.net, and your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record.
All right, thank you. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can we call the first item on the agenda?
Yep, and item number 1 is for a development plan review, special development permit and design review, located at the southwest corner of the Fair Oaks Boulevard and Sunrise Boulevard intersections, bounded by Howard Street to the south in the Fair Oaks community. And the environmental document is a mitigated negative declaration.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. This is Manuel Mejia, Senior Planner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank
we can
you.
hear you.
Thank you. Okay, we can start the presentation on the slides. I don't see that slides. Are the slides on the screen?
No, if you'll bear with us for just one moment, Manny. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. Okay, thank you. Let's see our first slide up, the point of Fair Oaks. Next slide, please. This site is an overall site. It consists of 1.36 acre parcel in the commercial district of the Fair Oaks Special Planning Area. It is located at the southwest corner of Fair Oaks and Sunrise in the Fair Oaks community. Next slide, please. The request is for a development plan review to allow 26 apartment units in 4 two-story structures on approximately 1.36 acres in the commercial district sub-area of the Fair Oaks Village. Also, a special development permit for a reduction in the minimum side yard setback along Sunrise Boulevard from 25 feet that's required to 10 foot that's proposed. Also, a reduction in the minimum trash enclosure setbacks from the public street, Howard Street, along the southern side of 31 feet required to approximately 23 feet. Also, deviations from the required 8-foot wide landscape planters with street trees along the project site frontage and setback areas on Fair Oaks Boulevard, Sunrise Boulevard, and Howard Street. Also, deviation from the required 7-foot wide landscape planter with screen trees along the interior property line adjacent to existing single-family residential parcels to the west. Also, deviation from parking lot landscaping standards, including minimum 8-foot wide landscape areas at the end of the parking aisles and parking islands every 7 parking spaces. And lastly, it's a design review complying with the Sacramento County countywide design guidelines. Next slide, please. Some of the key points of this project is after several attempts at developing this property, the owner has proposed a housing project that is in scale with the size of the property. The proposal is for a 26-unit housing community. In response to the public feedback and the CPAC, the applicant reduced the number of stories from 3 stories down to 2 stories. The applicant also has reduced the number of units from 39 units to 26. As a result, the project meets the minimum number of requirement on-site parking spaces. The driveway on Fair Oaks Boulevard will be a right turn only point of entry. The driveway on Howard Street will act as both a point of entry and exit as part of the project. Howard Street will be widened along the project frontage and up to Villa Court. We're all aware, if you've been by that site, you know how difficult and challenging this site is. Next slide. This is a site plan showing how the development will be laid out. As you see, the buildings will be along the east side, the parking along the west side. Next slide. Here's some elevations of the project. Like I said, it is a 2-story project. They will have covered parking spaces. Next slide. Here is the landscape plan showing some new vegetation along that eastern property line. There on Sunrise, which is quite a distance down from the final grade of this project down to Sunrise Boulevard. Next slide. The recommendations is it went before the DRAC, and the DRAC recommended 3-0 that the board find the project not in substantial compliance with the countywide design guidelines. Their reasons was not enough environmental protection of the site, specifically the trees and the excessive grading. Design review administrator and staff seems to feel that they would like to recommend approval of the project for the countywide design guidelines due to, first of all, the trees. Yes, there are a lot of trees on the site, 30 to begin with, but they will be removed. But in order for this to actually be developed of any type, and especially for a housing project, they feel that the trees would have to be sacrificed in this particular point. There will be some new trees on the site that will eventually grow. As far as the grading does go higher along the western down to the east, but the grading is necessary to have a nice development. And also the applicant is providing retaining walls along the eastern side that will actually terrace up and make a real nice streetscape planted with a lot of vegetation in there. For that reason, like I said, staff and the design administrator is recommending approval. Also, the Fair Oaks CPAC heard this several times, and that we're real pleased the second time when they voted 4-0 for approval, in that the applicant went back and actually listened to what they said, listened to the community outreach, and actually redesigned it to be more fitting with the property. We can move to the next slide if possible. Analyzing the project, the staff feels it's consistent with applicable county plans. The general finding can be made to support the special development permits. The DRA and staff find the proposed design mitigating the DRAC's concerns. Fair Oaks CPAC unanimously recommended approval of the project. All comments received from the public regarding this project have been addressed to the extent possible, and this gets a great housing opportunity there along Sunrise Boulevard. Next slide. The recommended actions for this is to adopt the mitigated negative declaration, to approve the development plan review subject to findings and conditions in attachment 2, to approve the special development permit in attachment 3, subject to findings and conditions, and to find the project in substantial compliance with the countywide design guidelines, subject to findings and conditions. Next slide. This should conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions, and the applicant is also on the line to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions for staff?
Chair Shelby, this is Alan. I have a couple questions for Manuel.
Sure.
But
Okay. Good evening, Manuel.
Good evening.
First of all, I'd like to thank the applicant for bringing a housing project to the county, so yay. But a couple of questions is, so from my understanding, the site has been redesigned to meet the minimum on site, so we can't go any less, correct?
As far as density wise, or
For zoning wise.
it's in the special planning area. There isn't really a density limitation on it. But they feel that they're able to support that many units and the parking to all fit in on this project nicely and still meet the open space requirement. The open space requirement is 20%. They come in at 23%. Okay. And then also have some amenities for the tenants of this apartment.
And then the 50% shading is met through the parking canopy, correct?
Right, through the carports and then any other landscaping trees that will eventually grow. Okay.
And the two neighbors to the east, the residential ones, since the drive aisle is right on their property line, no pushback from them. They're okay with that?
Yeah, after several iterations of it, yeah, I think that we finally got the neighborhood to accept it, and also knowing the limitations of this site. You can only push that drive aisle so far, either back from Sunrise or back from their property. Right. Unfortunately, had to go closer to their property than to Sunrise Boulevard.
But specifically, those two neighbors that are impacted at this point, they're satisfied with the design.
Yeah, we haven't heard back from them.
Okay, and then since the units are so close, like they're right on top of Sunrise Boulevard, and I apologize if it's already in your conditions of approval. Is there a requirement for sound mitigation on the glazing and the wall design on the units facing Sunrise, or a sound acoustic report to make sure that the residents aren't hearing or the sound off of the street is mitigated?
Yes. Commissioner, yeah, if you read through the environmental document, it did address that. And they did say that there is a noise level that's like at 75 dB, but it has to be brought down to 45, and that the applicants, through their building process, through their glazing of the walls or windows or doors, will meet that 45 dBA for the interior noise for those people facing Sunrise Boulevard.
Okay, great. So, thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner Hom, this is Chris Bahuli, Principal Planner. Just to note, it is condition of approval 8 and mitigation measure C that addresses the noise standards.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for staff?
This is Kara.
Yeah, go ahead, Chair.
Okay, just a quick question on the trash enclosure. I noticed that the request with the special development permit is 6.5 feet to a residential zone. It seems pretty close. What type of material or construct are they, or is it conditioned to kind of prevent any sort of odor or visual impact from trash being so near to the residents?
The applicant might be able to answer that one a little better. As far as the construction, it is a masonry, walls, and it has to have a roof on the site now on the trash enclosure, which years ago it didn't have to have that, but now it has to have a roof on it.
Okay. So it's completely enclosed.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Manuel, if I can, this is Alan.
Sure.
So, going on top of the Kara's comment, is there a hose bib at the trash enclosure for washdown?
Is there what?
A hose bib at the trash enclosure for washdown?
You'd have to ask the applicants into that complete detail, but I know that under the DWR's requirements now, it has to have its own drain, has to have a filtration system. Right, and okay. I would imagine that being so far from any place else, that they would put water in there for a washdown.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think Commissioner Raythel, you had a question?
Yeah, I just really, I look at the design review, the draft comments, and it's pretty hard to go from a 3-0 to a we're actually in substantial compliance. Can you talk a little bit more about why you feel the project is in substantial compliance, even with the grading and the tree loss?
Well, first of all, like I said, we're really looking for housing projects now. And so, the draft didn't have a problem with the architectural design of the project. Like I said, most of them was how to deal with the trees and the grading. So, staff feels that that the applicant has moved forward enough, and so did unfortunately now it's the prior design review administrator. We have a new one now, but at that time when this was written, the design review administrator did feel that the applicant, as far as architecturally, was fine with it, as was the draft members, but more that they did adequate improvements to it. So he felt satisfactory that, and also there's the trees and the location of the trees were all in an area that you really couldn't help but have to get rid of them in order to have any kind of development on this project.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused with that because I look at the site and I see the meat of the parcel is really treeless. The trees are mostly on the edges of the property. Right. And so I guess I'm a little confused by that. Could they not have put residential in the middle of the property and maybe left the area? It looks like we have a pool that's going in that we now have to put sound walls around where most of the tree canopy was. It just seems like an odd approach. So did you guys do any analysis on how many residential units you could fit without removing every tree on the property?
I did not do that, unfortunately. Environmental might have, but I personally, I worked with the planner who actually started this project, and he left. I took over for it, so I don't remember ever going into that detail into seeing how many units would actually fit and leave all the trees on the property.
Maybe it's a question we ask the applicant.
It could be. The applicant might be able to better understanding of that.
Yeah, if I could just ask one more. So right up against Sunrise, and none of the grades are changing as far as any of the surrounding roadways.
Correct.
So why do the trees need to be removed that are bordering these major roadways?
Again, like I said, that might be a better question for the applicant.
Okay. Well, ask the applicant. Thanks so much.
And with that, commissioners, like I said, it's Emmanuel here. Like I said, this will be my last presentation before you. I'll be retiring. So it's been a pleasure. A few times I've been before you and stuff. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? No, we bring the applicant forward. And we can swear him in, Lydia.
Okay, and I'm trying to see if the applicant's actually on the line here.
It should be Michael Allen.
Yeah, I see. I do not see that the applicant is on the line, Manny. I thought it would be either Michael Buschow or Michael Allen.
Right, those gentlemen are both. That's the applicant and the engineer.
Mm-hmm. And neither of which are on the line currently.
Okay. I'll show them as attendees.
Yes.
Oh, they are on the attendees. Give us just one moment.
Yes.
We're going to promote them over. I apologize.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Mike Allen. I'm the owner.
Hi, Mr. Allen. I am going to, this is Lydia from the Clerk of the Board's office, and I'm going to go ahead and get you sworn in prior to making any comments, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so if you wish to address the commission, please prepare to be sworn in, and I ask that you please raise your right hand and the appropriate response is I do. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give this commission is the truth, so help you God? If you do not swear, do you so affirm?
I do.
And before you make your statements, please state your name for the record and make the statement, I have been sworn, please.
Michael Patrick Allen, and I have been sworn.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Yes, were there some questions for me?
Yeah, Commissioner Raythel, you want to ask your questions? Okay.
Yeah, I really just kind of want to understand the grading and tree loss. What's kind of driving that? And because I guess I look at the parcel, I see that it's relatively clear in the middle, and the trees tend to be associated at the edges, which aren't changing grade. So, is there a reason we can't move the project in a few feet and save the trees on the edge of the parcel?
Well, we looked at that several different ways, trying to save, as many trees as we could on the property. And with the setbacks and the grades and ADA and the parking requirements, we kept what we could, and we had to take out the rest. And obviously, we're going to have to pay a mitigation fee for doing that, which, certainly don't want to have to do that. But unfortunately, that's what we have to do. And, when we started out with this project, we were told by the county that we could do up to 50 units. And then we gradually brought it back to 39. And then now we're at 26. So in order to meet all the parking and building layouts and setbacks, that's the project that after meeting with planning, the roads, fire department, et cetera. That's how the project has to lay out. And the biggest one was fire, with their access onto the site, with their turnarounds and hammerheads and stuff, in order to service the building in case there was a problem.
Okay, so just to confirm, you're not saving a single tree. There's no way to reorient any of the buildings or any of the grading on the site to save a single tree.
No, not at this point. We looked at that. To do the grading and meet the county codes with ADA requirements for parking, you have to grade the project in a certain manner. In order to have the buildings lay out the way they're laid out and to meet the fire requirements, that's what we came up with the fire department. We had a different layout before, but the county fire department wouldn't approve it because they needed access and the path, the parking lanes for the fire department, the path of travel through the site, and the amount of number of parking spaces that we needed. We went through like 4 iterations of laying out the parking and the buildings to try to make it fit, and to make it to where, we didn't have to take as many trees as we have. But unfortunately, that's what we've got. And we've done everything we could.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions for the applicant?
This is Alan.
Yep.
Hi, Mike. This is Alan.
Oh, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I'm looking at Yamasaki's site plan. It looks like you are keeping some of the trees, so it's not everything's getting cut out, correct? I'm looking at the
we're keeping,
right around the pole.
Yes, we're keeping some. And I couldn't tell you as I sit here right now how many are going to have to go, but the biggest one is the one right in the center of the property, the big oak.
Right.
It's kind of on its last legs anyway, but you can't build you can't build a building around something like that and keep it and still maintain parking requirements and ADA requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, some of the trees are staying, and we're also planting a lot of different trees, and again, we're going to have to pay mitigation fees for some of the trees that we're taking out.
And the hammerhead on the design that's driven by Sacramento Fire, because I noticed the trash enclosure is off the hammerhead. So fire wouldn't accept just a straight drive-through. They needed the hammerhead in there.
Yes, they did. Yeah, we tried. We went through, like I said, we've gone through 3 or 4 iterations with fire, traffic, et cetera, on laying this project out, and the overriding factor was fire with the hammerhead, and that's what we had to go with in order to get their
Okay, thank you.
This is Justin again. Maybe we can get staff to weigh in? I see in the staff report it says there's 30 trees on site, and then it talks about tree removal, and it says a total of 11 native trees will be removed and a total of 19 non-native trees will be removed, and there's total tree canopy loss. So are we keeping any trees or are we not keeping trees?
My understanding was that the 30, if you add up 11 and 19, that pretty much discusses all the trees on site. But I might be mistaken. Like I said, Mr. Allen is the owner of the property. He may know that there are some trees that are going to be saved.
I thought there were some trees being saved. I don't have that information sitting in front of me.
And well, this is Alan.
Yes.
Alan speaking again. Again, if you look at your presentation and you look at the package, I look at Yamasaki's landscape plan as part of the application package. It clearly shows, it doesn't, granted, I can't, because of the size of the image, I can't read the actual count, but I just look at the graphics. It clearly depicts that there are trees being saved, especially in that cluster in the northern end of the site. The total count, the Yamasaki site plan doesn't, I can't seem to determine what the count is, but if you look at the graphics, some are saving. So it looks like there's a bit of a disconnect between the staff report and the application package.
I'm going to look right now at hopefully a larger version of it on my computer, and I'll get back with you real fast to see if I can see the trees.
Is that Exhibit B?
Joel? Our coordinators online.
Yeah, so I think I can, if I can, provide a little clarity. So there is a total of 30 trees that were inventoried on the site. 11 of those trees are protected trees. All 11 protected trees will be removed from the site. The cluster of trees that's on the that's on the north side of the property is mostly non-native trees. So you see a cluster canopy, and the applicant, because they are removing most of those trees, the canopy kind of overlaps, and so they will be mitigating for the removal of all trees on the site.
So
they may or may not, with their own operations, be able to save a few of those trees, but based on my review of the grading and the environmental document, they are mitigating for all the trees on the site to be removed.
Okay, so this is Alan speaking. So the planning entitlement exhibits aren't correctly depicting what's actually being proposed then.
In what way?
Because again, if you look at Exhibit B, the landscape plan, it signed by Yamasaki Architects. It clearly shows the existing trees to remain, and it says something like protect underneath the tripwire and blah 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 stuff like that. So and there are also a cluster of trees that looks like it's going to remain along the east side or west side, I should say. So it seems like there's a disconnect. I'm hearing all the trees are being gone, but yet the planning application package shows that there are trees being retained. So I'm not sure what we're approving.
I'm noticing the ones on the west. It appears that those are overhang from the property to the west.
Okay, but there's some right on.
Yeah, I'm looking at the other ones here. It says the area beneath the existing trees will be cleaned up and covered with a 4-inch layer of bark mulch.
Right, but unfortunately, the plan, I can't read on the plan how many of those are staying, if any. Yeah, apparently not.
Yeah, it doesn't really list the number. I'm looking at. I'm actually blown that site plan up of the landscaping, and it doesn't really list any trees saying that they are actually going to be saved on this plan. It just says total parking area, shade required, tree shading provided, covered parking, and percentage of shade. It says parking lot shading calcs, existing tree 1 at 481 feet at 50%. I just don't see anywhere on the site plan that it actually talks about any existing trees to remain. Even though it shows kind of that in writing, it says something about existing trees will have, covered bark underneath them. They're in that cluster on Exhibit B, but I don't really see it saying anywhere on this site plan here where they're going to actually have any existing trees saved.
So what we're going to vote on is actually all the trees being removed then?
That's what it appears to be, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? And then I have one for the applicant. Are you okay with all the conditions of approval?
Yes.
All right. Open the public comment section.
Okay, and there are
on this item?
No, not on this item.
Okay. So we'll close public comment. We can entertain the comments or a motion from the commission. Maybe Commissioner Rayfield, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'll throw out a comment. It's tough to say that, we've tried everything on the site, and when we couldn't save any of the trees, I get it. The site's pretty restricted. I get it. It's been through multiple iterations, and there are concerns about the height of putting, 3-story multifamily next to it, and so this project looks better than the last one. But I think the design review administrator, may have been right and appropriate when saying that this doesn't really conform to our design guidelines, just based on the fact that it may not be an appropriate site for this type of development. And that's where I'm kind of sitting on it is, hey, if I've done my best to try to save all the trees, maybe I'm able to save 1 or 2. But it's not a complete grade from corner to corner.
I guess I'll go next. This is Alan. In general, I'm supportive of the project. Because I was going off the graphics of the package, and on the graphics again, it shows that there's some trees being saved. I don't know if there's a way to if this thing moves forward to add a condition or some sort of comment that ask the applicant to relook at the landscape and to more see what can be saved on the trees, especially on the north corner where we have big clump. Granted, I understand, not all of them are protected. But what bothers me a little bit is the disconnect between the application package and then what's written in the staff report. And so looking at the site plan, looks like something could be done. Granted, I get it. The site is difficult. And with the Sacramento fire requirements and all that, many of the trees have to go. But there seems like to be an opportunity to do something on the north corner of the site for tree retention. And I'm not sure if we're able to, or if there's something already in the conditions that would ask the applicant to revisit that again. Again, I'm not sure I want to hold up this project because of that. But then again, I'm not comfortable just carte blanche and saying, let it fly.
And the last county council, we're the determining body here. So it's not a recommendation.
That's correct.
So I think we either approve or you don't approve, or we send it back. I don't think there's an option of. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Correct. Approve, deny, or condition.
Yeah.
So, Bill, we cannot add a condition to this thing?
Of course you can.
We can add conditions. I think what he's saying is it has to be something specific and not like try to go do something else. We'd have to go say exactly what we want them to go do. Makes sense.
So I guess I don't know, because again, the count isn't there. So for me, I can't definitively state that, save, 5 trees in that cluster, because I'm not sure how many trees are in that cluster, because on this particular application of landscape plan, it doesn't have a landscape plan that shows the number of trees to be removed and number of trees to be maintained. It just is very generic in nature. But again, it depicts that there are going to be some saved. So I don't know if I can craft a condition such that save the trees in the north corner of the site. I don't know if that's too generic or not.
This is Kara. I'd like to weigh in. I think, the conditions require mitigation for all trees. So I think it would be difficult, and I would be hesitant to craft a condition that says go save trees if we're requiring the applicant to do the full mitigation. I think we can give direction that if there's a chance to preserve any native trees on site, we would appreciate that. I don't want to condition the approval of this project on anything but 100% mitigation for what we're assuming is 100% tree removal. I agree with you. Yeah. If we can save some, it would be great, but I want them to mitigate for all tree removal, because it seems like that's what's in front of us today.
Okay, you and I are on the same page. I was going to say something similar.
I'll also just know, it's unfortunate that we can't save more, and the site seems to be difficult. I do think the applicant has listened and come back and significantly reduced the density. I think, housing in front of us is really the objective. And, the mitigation will include planting of additional trees as required by the conditions. So with that, I'd be happy to support staff recommendation.
Bill, this is Alan. So I can't say I disagree with Kara's comment and Chair Shelby's comment. So if we approve this thing, the applicant's free to mitigate 100%. Even though we would like them to see what they can save, but they don't have to. Is that what I understand?
Yes, that would be the case. But they do have the feedback, and staff has our feedback too from this conversation. But yes, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Justin. Can I ask one other question? I'm just those trees. I'm just looking at a detailed county map. Unfortunately, since we don't get things, we don't get higher resolution stuff. It's really tough to get into the details of these things. I understand there's an oak that's in the very center of the site that's sitting overlapping 4 out of 4 of the buildings. What about the trees that are along Howard Street? Can we just kind of go into those in detail and review those trees? And if they're at grade with Howard Street, why are they being taken out? And are they protected trees?
You like to ask that question to the applicant?
Whoever can answer it. I literally can't answer it with the documents I have. I'm looking at IS 39 out of the initial study by JTS. If that helps, it's on page 98 of our packet. It goes into a tree information table.
So Chris, who would be the best person to answer that question?
That's a good question. We do have our environmental coordinator on the line. I'm not sure that she is that familiar with the arborist report, although she may.
So the trees along Howard Street. So as far as I know, and it may be a question for the applicant, but as far as I understand what's happening here, we have a safety impact along Howard Street and other transportation improvements that need to go in that will widen Howard along that stretch. So that will result in the removal of those trees along Howard.
Yes, this is Mike Allen again. Those trees on Howard, those are the biggest bulk of the ones that we tried to save, but we have to widen Howard Street to meet Sac County standards, and in doing that, those trees are going to have to go. If we could leave Howard Street like it is, one lane street, those trees could stay. But we went through that whole analysis with design and planning, and all of that is shown on the JTS engineering report and the tree study that we've done.
Thank you.
So is that
your question, Commissioner Rachel?
Unfortunately, it doesn't. I understand that Howard Street is being widened as part of this project, but I still don't understand. Is that an absolute requirement from staff that we do widen it for this project? We're talking about widening the street by 2 feet, right?
No, we're widening the street by 2 feet from the end of the property line up to Villa Court, from Howard Street where it meets Sunrise. We're widening Howard Street all the way up to the end of the property to meet California, the county standards for the street widths. And that's going to encroach upon my property and the property adjacent to it as well. So that was all part of Department of Transportation requirements.
Because you're developing a parcel that's here, so they're forcing you to do the street improvements that are next to you.
Yes,
to
sir.
Bring it up to standards, even though the street wasn't originally built to standards.
Correct. Yeah. Right now, it's basically a 1-lane street.
That is highly unfortunate for those trees that are sitting there. Okay, that answers my question. I'm ready to move on.
Yes, for any project that would be done here, Department of Transportation would require that street to be widened to meet Sac County standards, and those trees would have to go.
Even if we built it out as a commercial parcel or something else, no matter what, Department of Transportation has told you that street has to be widened?
Yes. And I had this brief history. This project was approved for for a 30,000 foot retail office building back in 2007. And at that time, all the trees were gone on the site when that project was approved at that point in time. And that was because of the Sac County Department of Transportation and the street requirements.
All right, thank you. We'll close the public comment section again. If there are other questions or comments, we can entertain a motion.
This is Kara. I'm happy to move staff recommendation.
This is Alan. Okay.
Okay, and for the roll call vote, Commissioners Hom,
Yes.
Martinson,
Yes.
Rathel,
Yes.
Tatishi, and Chair Shelby.
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you.
And for item number 2, it's for a general plan amendment, community plan amendment, zoning ordinance amendment, and tentative subdivision map. Located at the northeast corner of Excelsior Road and Jackson Road in the Cordova and Vineyard communities. And the environmental document is for recirculated draft environmental impact report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Todd Smith here with the Office of Planning and Environmental Review. While the PowerPoint is coming up, I want to acknowledge that we have received a number of comments on this recirculated draft EIR, and I believe the Secretary has been forwarding them to each of you for consideration. Next slide, please. So,
Todd, just to make sure we're on the same page, my understanding is we're receiving public comment today. We're not taking any action today except to close the public comment, and we'll take action at a later date on the final EIR.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct. Okay. That's exactly what I was about to say. So, just as a brief overview, the Jackson Township project is one of the 4 master plans along the Jackson Highway corridor. The Planning Commission previously recognized the end of the draft EIR comment period in October of 2019. At the request of the applicant, we, county staff, and our consultant prepared a recirculated draft EIR, and that was published May 14th of 2021, and the public comment period ends today, June 28th, 2021. So today, the purpose of the hearing is not to make a recommendation on the merits of the project. It is solely to receive comments on this recirculated draft EIR, and staff is not requesting any action on the project at this time. Next slide, please. So just to get your bearings here geographically, the Jackson Township project is the one right in the middle that's outlined in red. To the west, we have the West Jackson Highway Master Plan. To the east is the Newbridge Pacific Plan and the Mather South Community Master Plan. Next slide, please. So the Jackson Township project is approximately 1,391 acres, located northeast at the northeast corner of Jackson Road and Excelsior Road. And that area that's north of Kiefer Boulevard is in the Cordova community. The area south of Kiefer Boulevard is in the Vineyard community, and the existing Independence at Mather residential area is to the north. The Jackson Township project is outside of what we call the urban policy area, but inside the urban services boundary. And as a result, it's subject to the growth management policies of the general plan. Next slide, please. So just to recap what the requested entitlements are, and again, there's no action being requested on these entitlements, but the project does consist of moving the urban policy area boundary changes to the general plan land use diagram for the project to be consistent with the proposed project land use designations. It would include an amendment to the general plan land use element and diagram for a mixed use designation. It also changes the transportation plan to reflect the proposed roadways on-site and the perimeter roadways, as well as the transit system that's proposed as part of the project. The project also would require amendments to both the Vineyard and Cordova community plans. It would include adoption of the Jackson Township specific plan itself via a zoning ordinance amendment that would also include a special planning area ordinance and a large lot tentative subdivision map that would be for the properties that are owned by the applicant. And then the remaining entitlements or actions you can see on the slide there. Next slide, please. So the original project, as it was submitted to the county, and that was the subject of the original draft EIR, was what you see on the screen, this land use plan that had about 6,043 dwelling units, density ranging from low density all the way up to high density, about 100 acres for school sites, 3 elementary schools and 1 middle school and high school to be served by the Elk Grove Unified School District. About 368 acres of parks and open space, and that included that area on the east side, about 214 acres of wetland preserve. That's that kind of olive green color on the east side of the project. About 130 acres of commercial and office, and 109 acres of agricultural designated land. That's that mint green color at the southeast corner. Those are existing kind of ag and ag res properties that the county required to be included in the project for the purposes of logical planning boundaries. The project also includes a location for a fire station. This area is in Metro Fire's jurisdiction. So the applicant and Metro Fire have been working out a location, a couple of locations for that site. Next slide, please. So when we published the draft EIR in late 2019, the EIR identified alternative 2 as the environmentally superior alternative. We did analyze a number of alternatives, land use alternatives in that EIR. And following that process, the applicant did formally confirm their intent to proceed with alternative 2 in January of this year. And so just a quick comparison here between the proposed project, which is the graphic on the left, and the alternative 2 land use plan, which is on the right. Some of the changes real quickly, starting in the northwest corner, the community commercial and medium density land uses, that's that red and the orange colors up there in the northwest corner, those swapped locations. That was also due to some community feedback received during the outreach associated with the project. The other changes are, I'm going to go east along Kiefer Boulevard there, a land use change from medium density to low density, right up in the north central part of the project. Moving down the east side, you can see that large bulbous pop out on the preserve area. So that shape reflects the same preserve boundary that's in the South Sacramento Habitat Conservation Plan. So alternative 2's wetland preserve is consistent with the South Sac HCP's wetland preserve strategy. That also resulted in a reduction of acreage for low density. The other changes, just going south towards Jackson Highway there's a land use change from a sliver of land that was in the proposed project originally designated as agriculture, is now designated as low density residential. And then moving west along Jackson Highway, just an example, the medium density that arrow is pointing to in the town center, but it's true across the board. A slight density reduction for medium density from 13 to dwelling units per acre. That's all of the changes associated with Alternative 2, and it was analyzed at an equal level of detail throughout all the technical studies. Next slide, please. For the draft EIR process, we originally published that first draft EIR in September of 2019. That review period ended October 31st, 2019. And I already said this, but I'll say it again. The applicant did request preparation of that recirculated draft EIR to address some of the public comments that were received and to clarify and expand on some of the analysis in the draft EIR. As an example, the applicant team did go and supplement some of the original analysis related to VMT and to greenhouse gases, and I'll get to that in just a minute. The recirculated draft EIR that the hearing tonight is for was published May 14th, and that review period ends tonight, June 28th. And so we're again accepting comments on that analysis in this meeting, if there are any. The next steps, we will prepare a final EIR that responds to all the comments that we receive prior to the project being heard by the Board of Supervisors. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to, in the next few slides, just touch on some of the draft EIR or recirculated draft EIR's key points. First, I'll start with aesthetics. The project or the analysis in the EIR did identify a substantial permanent change to the view shed associated with the project through the conversion to urban development. That's just, the project is in a semi-rural area now, and a project of this size brings urban development. That's would bring about new sources of light. We do include mitigation to minimize this impact through requiring the use of exterior lighting fixtures that have been approved by the International Dark Sky Association. But because of that change to an urban development area, it remains a significant and unavoidable impact. As it relates to agricultural resources, the project would convert important farmland that's on the site now to non-agricultural use. Next slide, please. As it relates to air quality, the project would result in new sources of emissions associated with reactive organic gases, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter. The project does include an air quality mitigation plan that achieves 35% emissions reduction. Associated with the way that the AQMP gets there is through traffic calming measures, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, building energy efficiency design features, and then high efficiency appliances and lighting. And there's a number of mobility features built into the project as well. However, this impact in particular remains significant and unavoidable despite the project achieving a 35% reduction, simply because the assumption of this project being developed was not assumed in the state implementation plan. So it remains a significant and unavoidable impact. Next slide, please. So climate change is one of the things I mentioned earlier. The project does include a greenhouse gas reduction plan that meets the 2030 thresholds of significance for greenhouse gas emissions. The mitigation measures include a number of requirements, but a few of those are mentioned on the slide here, including public charging stations for electric vehicles in commercial, retail, and office parking lots. It also requires EV readiness in or pre-wiring for all the low and medium density residential units, plus 10% of the high density residential units. The mitigation also includes electric water heaters and Energy Star appliances in residential units, as well as compliance with the community-wide climate action plan, which has gone through one round of public review at this point. And that would be, of course, following adoption, the project would be able to verify its consistency with those applicable measures in the climate action plan. Next slide, please. As it relates to biological resources, the project would result in loss of habitat for those vernal pool invertebrates, the loss of wetlands and other waters or aquatic resources. The project alternative 2 was determined to be consistent with the South Sacramento Habitat Conservation Plan. It includes all of the applicable avoidance and minimization measures that are in the SSHCP for implementation with the project. The project would also result in the loss of foraging and nesting habitat for special status birds, such as raptors or even ground nesting birds like the burrowing owl. A number of trees on site would be lost as a result of the project. And there are a number of species associated with all these types of habitats that are detailed in the biological resources chapter. Next slide, please. Water supply, a big issue with a project of this size or scale. The Sacramento County Water Agency is the water purveyor for the project. They prepared a water supply assessment that indicates there is sufficient water supply to serve the project. As an FYI, in case commissioners aren't aware, the water agency is a provider of conjunctive use water, meaning surface water and groundwater. It's not solely one or the other. Given the location of the project, there are some extensions of water supply infrastructure that would be needed, and the impacts associated with that construction are fully analyzed in the EIR. For sewer, the project would not exceed existing or planned capacity. This is served by Sacramento Area Sewer District, and there would be an extension of a trunk sewer line that would be necessary as well. Next slide, please. So traffic and circulation is a big topic here again. For those of you who don't remember, the county did a joint traffic transportation impact study with all of those 4 projects that were on, I think, the second slide or third slide, to analyze all of those transportation impacts associated with the various modes of transportation. Those who have been following legislative changes over the last several years are aware of SB 743 related to vehicle miles traveled. So the original draft EIR included that level of service-based analysis, or LOS, which identified significant impacts to the roadway segments and intersections, freeway facilities. That analysis is still valid from a general plan consistency perspective, and the project would still be subject to the Jackson Corridor Transportation Mitigation Strategy. This recirculated draft EIR includes an updated vehicle miles traveled analysis, or VMT, that's consistent with Sacramento County's updated transportation analysis guidelines and the methodology that we're looking at for implementing SB 743. We did identify significant impacts associated with VMT, and there are mitigation measures that are included that reduce certain trips. So all those trip reduction strategies are included in the mitigation measure in the transportation chapter. One of those trip reduction strategies is transit. The Jackson Corridor Transit Network and Service was an effort that was developed pretty extensively with all 4 project proponents. This project proponent has done something above and beyond that. they're proposing enhanced transit service. Well, let me back up one step. That original transit service consists of 15-minute headways during the peak hours and 30 minutes off-peak during the weekdays. This applicant is going above and beyond that by providing an enhanced transit service with Sacramento Regional Transit District that essentially consists of funding transit passes for each household from the beginning of the project, such that those transit passes can be used anywhere on RT's network, including the light rail stations. So it's really trying to set up that positive behavior from the beginning until such time as shuttles or even full-length buses can be run through the project when there's that critical mass as it develops over time. The Jackson Corridor Trail Network is, again, a comprehensive trail network that we looked at as both planning and Department of Transportation staff to make sure that there were connections within each project, excuse me, within each project and between the projects. So there's multiple tiers of trails that achieve that connectivity. Next slide, please. So public comments that we have received to date have been transmitted to the Secretary for the Planning Commission and are being distributed to you folks, the commissioners. This 45-day public review period ends today. We have received, I think, 14 comment letters on this recirculated draft EIR, if I'm not mistaken. And next slide, please. So staff recommendations tonight are just to simply acknowledge the end of the public comment period for this recirculated draft EIR, direct staff in the Office of Planning and Environmental Review to prepare the final EIR. And the last two bullets here are informational. The Cordova CPAC met in October 2019, unanimously recommended approval. There were no new issues raised at that hearing. The Vineyard CPAC, similar story in November of 2019. They also recommended approval. No new issues raised at that hearing either. And last slide, please. At least I think it's the last slide. So this is that alternative to land use plan. Just leave it up on screen for any questions and discussion.
Do we have to do anything to formally acknowledge the end of the public comment period, or is that just?
That's just the staff recommendation.
Okay, so we have to. Okay, we do need to acknowledge it as a part of our. Take a vote on that or something. Is that what we need to do?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any public? Well, I don't. We probably went here for applicant on this. I'm assuming we would go right to. I'm asking you, Bill. Do we go to public comments now? We go take any other public comment for this section?
Well, you can have the applicant speak if they want to speak first.
Okay. Do we have the applicant here?
Yes, this is Tom Wiley with Taylor and Wiley on behalf of the applicant, and we're here to listen. We'll be listening to comments and look forward to coming back to you on the project.
All right, sounds good. All right, we'll open up for public comments at this point in time. Do we have any public comments on this item?
Well, we do have a commenter on the line. There were some technical issues. If you can just bear with us just one moment, we're trying to get them back on the line. One moment, please.
Okay, caller, you have 3 minutes to make your comment.
My name is Roxanne Fuentes. I'm opposed to the Jackson Township specific plan, which proposes to develop 1,391 acres of open space in Sacramento County and amend the urban policy area. Project would permanently change the visual character of the area, and it would be lost forever to future generations. The majority of the planned area is vernal pool prairie with native wildflowers in annual grasslands surrounding vernal pool complexes. Many plants and animals are found only in these habitats, such as slender orchid grass and Sacramento orchid grass, which are seriously endangered, and vernal pool fairy shrimp, which are rare and threatened, and vernal pool tadpole shrimp, which are rare and endangered. A large portion of the plant area is within vernal pool critical habitat subunit 11E, about 779 acres, or 57% of this subunit occurs in the plant area. And the project and alternative 2 would destroy most of this area. Sacramento County has one of the largest remaining concentrations of breeding pairs of Swainson's hawks. Project and alternative 2 would remove suitable nest trees and cause a permanent loss of 516.7 acres of foraging habitat for the Swainson's hawk, pushing them closer to extinction. Project would cause the loss of burrowing owls in their habitat. It would remove 516.7 acres of foraging habitat for the grasshopper sparrow, the song sparrow, yellow-headed blackbird, loggerhead shrike, Cooper's hawk, ferruginous hawk, white-tailed kite, and northern harrier. It will cause the abandonment of active tricolored blackbird colony and loss of eggs and young of this threatened species. It will also cause the loss of American badger dens and their babies. Western pond turtles and rare western spadefoot toads will be destroyed by this project. 96 native trees and 707 non-native trees will be destroyed by the project. 1,126 acres of farmland will be destroyed by this project. Lighting from this project will destroy nighttime views in the area. The no project alternative would reduce impacts to all resource areas and would be environmentally superior. This alternative would retain grasslands, wildlife habitat, and trees in the plant area that support special status plants and wildlife species known to occur in the area. The no project alternative would allow for continued use of the area for agriculture. The no project alternative would result in less potential to affect groundwater recharge. The no project alternative would have less impact on traffic and transportation than the project. We must not destroy all the beautiful open space land in Sacramento County.
Thank you. And that concludes your public comment.
Okay. We'll close the public comment section. And nothing else, I'll entertain a motion. I'll move to acknowledge the end of the public comment period for the recirculated draft EIR on June 28, 2021, and direct the Office of Planning and Environmental Review to prepare the final EIR.
This is Alan. I'll second the motion.
Okay, and for the roll call vote, Commissioners Hom,
Yes.
Martinson,
Yes.
Rethel,
Yes.
and Chair Shelby.
Yes.
And the motion passes with those members present. And item number 3 on your agenda is the Planning Director's report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Chris Pahuli, Principal Planner, once again. Just wanted to provide a few updates here. Last time you met, I mentioned that the board was going to be considering a workshop on the Alberta specific plan. That meeting happened on June 15th. The result of the workshop with the board was that they reaffirmed their prior findings on PFA related to groundwater supply for the Alberta specific plan area. That reaffirmation of the determination on groundwater supply does free up the path for a handful of tentative subdivision maps to move forward. And so over the course of the next few months, you will start to see some of those maps being brought forward to the Planning Commission. In some instances, you will be the decision body. In other instances, there are rezones associated with those that will require that they move on to the board as the decision body. In addition to the reaffirmation of those findings, they also initiated a specific plan amendment to evaluate and bring forward plan amendments to address the agricultural residential areas of the Alberta specific plan, with the hopes that some of the property owners in that area being able to move forward with parcel maps. So that's something that staff is going to begin scoping out. And again, eventually will work its way to the Planning Commission as an advisory body for those specific plan amendments. Finally, during the workshop, they entertained issues related to the millions of dollars of transportation improvements in the Alberta specific plan area, and heard from the development interests and provided direction to County Department of Transportation staff to continue to evaluate ways to perhaps amend the plan to allow for development to occur without the burden of such onerous transportation requirements. So wanted to provide that update to the Planning Commission. A couple of other items. The South Sacramento CPAC has appealed the determination on that boat storage and truck storage project on Elsie Avenue in South Sac. Staff is currently working on materials for a board hearing, likely on August 24th for that appeal. I'll keep you updated as we get closer to that date. And then lastly, just wanted to mention, I know it's in some ways the next item on your agenda, but we are going to be canceling the next meeting on July 12th. The Planning Commission's next hearing will actually be on July 26th, which we have items that we have lined up for. And we did, Commissioner or Chair Shelby, myself, and the clerk's office did receive correspondence from Commissioner Tatishi that he will not be there on the 26th, or not be in attendance on the 26th, so there will be 4 planning commissioners.
Well, there actually will be 3. I won't be there on the 26th either.
Helpful.
I was just going to say, I am. I went out there on the 20th as well. Why are we not doing the 12th?
There were no items that were scheduled for the 12th. Yeah. And so it sounds like we will not have a quorum then for the 26th, which is good to know. So we will look at the following date, which would be, I believe, August
2nd, or just move the next.
No, I think it's August 9th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's the 9th. I guess that's quite answered. Do we need another meeting? But I guess we could talk about it.
Chris, this is Alan. Do we have a meeting like on the 18th or something like that? I don't have the calendar in front of me at the moment.
18th of which month?
August.
No, the August meetings would be August 9th and August 23rd would be the.
Okay, 23rd, I won't be here.
Okay. And August 9th?
I should be okay.
Everyone's there? Everyone's around for August?
I'll be here on the 9th.
Yep, I will as well.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. That concludes my my update.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item is for the miscellaneous scheduling matters.
I think we just covered that.
Okay. And moving right along to the public comments, and there are no additional public comments.
All right. Having none, we'll call this meeting adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Bye.